Picking the right advertising vehicle for your business. Okay, let's review. 93.4% of all purchases are made with businesses or brands that already exist in our minds. To get your brand into the minds of potential customers, you'll have to do so with what differentiates your brand, and you'll have to do so with a strategy of consistency, persistence, and frequency. Because the stats suggest to be retained these days, you'll need to knock on the door of their mind between 18 to 20 times. So let's look at the alternatives you have to tell your story. TV is fantastic at telling stories. However, it is an expensive advertising platform. And these days, we're fast forwarding or avoiding the ads along with subscribing to TV without adverts. So it's no longer as effective at telling a business's story as it used to be. YouTube is getting busier, but most of us are guilty of hovering over the skip ad button, ready to resume watching the thing we want to see. If we even see a newspaper these days, at best we will scan read it, and seldom are the ads part of our scan. Newspapers used to be great at sharing information, but let's face it, the written word is now distributed a whole lot more effectively. Now, because we tend to travel on the same roads 85% of the time and often do so on autopilot, the only outdoor signage we see are news signs. Even then, we'll really only absorb a maximum of 8 words. So if you can tell your story in 8 words or less, outdoor signage is an option. Just remember, if you want your brand to be perceived as big, your sign needs to be big also. Small signs have proven to have the exact opposite effect. Do you know the average advert on your screen, be it a phone, laptop or tablet, gets a median gaze time of 0.7 of a second? With so much wonderful content to absorb on our screens, the poor old adverts aren't even getting a second gaze. Reality is 0.7 of a second is not enough for any brand to effectively tell its story. So yes, digital is massive, but digital advertising is the most ignored advertising ever created. Platforms on our phones like emails, social media and SMS are brilliant for staying connected with brands we're already familiar with. But the stats prove we tend to avoid and ignore strangers on these platforms. But that makes sense because after all, we got these platforms to stay connected with friends, not to be annoyed by strangers. However, the exception for the strangers that we do pay attention to on these platforms, like Facebook for example, is businesses offering a brand new innovative solution. We tend to be fascinated by innovation. Mailers, junk mail, flyers, etc. They work well to show us the picture of a product and its price. But we seldom read the stories on these platforms. So it's great for a price-driven business, but if your point of difference goes beyond price, this solution may not be for you. That leaves us with radio. Now here's a couple of interesting things about radio. Of all the different platforms that advertising exists, radio is first equal with cinema advertising as the medium we are least likely to avoid the adverts on. The reason's pretty simple really. Unlike every other platform, radio does not ask you for a commitment of time. In fact, 90% of radio listeners are doing something else while listening to radio. Stats prove we're more likely to change a radio station because of a song we don't like than because of an advert. So adverts on radio have got a chance. You see, we've developed somewhat of an addiction to this thing here. We like to be distracted, entertained and connected to the real world in real time. Ironically, this addiction has actually led us to spending more time listening to radio. When our eyes are busy doing something like driving our cars or cooking or cleaning or doing work and doing our jobs, then our ears take over the responsibility of keeping us connected, distracted, entertained. So radio advertising is not being avoided. We can't fast forward the ads, we don't skip the ads, and best of all, this platform gives us the time to tell our story. Radio can be the most compelling storytelling platform of the lot, as long as you know the formula to tell a story that's heard, retained, and acted upon. That's the topic of the next video.